Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. Question: what happens when you cheat on an election in an obscenely obvious way in front of the entire world? Well, the answer is you get an army of software engineers that know how to analyze the data, write code to break it down, and compare every transaction, and then show the entire world what has really happened. The world is filled with bright software engineers who can break down and analyze transactions very easily. It's not rocket science, especially for them, and it can be proven. It just takes time and some initiative. Fortunately, this work is occurring right now, and the first batches of analysis is coming out. Authorities, President Trump's attorneys, need to take notice, as this is 100% provable given we have the transactional data. Teams of others could easily verify results, and it can be taken to court to prove the case of fraud. And more importantly, who actually won the election. Further, with transactional data, which we have, analysis can prove every race in the country and see if there was a much larger red wave, as many of us suspect, thus changing many more congressional seats and seats in the Senate. It wouldn't be a close Senate. I am very certain of that if we look at and audit this entire race across the entire country. I recently posted analysis from Truman Black, which was initially posted on the Donald.win website. And there's a group of mathematicians and computer scientists, computer engineers working on this, and they have put out their initial analysis. And what you will see is that massive amounts of votes were changed from President Trump to Biden, as everyone has been suspecting. But further, other votes were removed altogether without reason. As with any analysis, it's important to check the work to ensure it has been completed properly without errors. There is more to do, but fortunately, people all over the world are working on this. And I have one report from an independent news site called No Q Report, and this is what they say. We are going through the data now, but everything we have combed through so far seems to check out. For example, in Georgia, there appears to have been 17,407 votes switched. Biden is currently leading in Georgia by 14,148 votes. So that means that Trump would win based on this. Pennsylvania is even worse, with over 1 million votes either switched or lost. So what do votes lost mean? That means that they just dropped out. So I think they lost a lot of votes because they had to make up for the fact that there was so many more votes cast for Biden that there was too many votes total. You know, they needed to make it look like the percentage of people that came out for the election wasn't over 100%. So they had to lose votes. Further, this is what No Q Report says. Combine this data with what we're learning about other forms of voter fraud, and it's easy to see how a man who couldn't fill a small auditorium with supporters was supposedly able to generate more votes than any American candidate in history. The truth is, he didn't. Millions of votes were manufactured on his behalf. He or someone else on his behalf used the hammer and scorecard to steal this election. I reached out to Truman Black and asked him why he and his team are doing this work, and he replied, "We love the United States of America, and we cannot sit around doing nothing while we watch the most blatant attempt from a corrupt establishment steal this election and the soul of America for their own selfish motives." So obviously this work is one of the most critical pieces of information to prove fraud 100%, and it would ultimately change the outcome of the election. So I am going to go over their post a little bit here, and I'm hoping that you will share this video far and wide. You can also share my article on sarahwestall.com. The title of the article is Trump Won, Fraud Proven. Analysis of voting data shows exactly what happened. And I have the initial post, and I have my commentary there as well, but it's really important that this gets out and people realize how deep and wide this fraud really is. But let me read some of this stuff so that you can see what they did. And he says, everything you're about to read is verified, and it was made by this Centipede. It's a person that was involved in their work. They want you to download and make copies, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What they did is they looked at every state that used the Dominion voting system so far. They're going to go farther and look at all the states because there's two things happening here. It's not just the states that have the Dominion voting systems. It's also the states that use the regular internet because the hammer goes in and they are flipping votes. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And it's not just that if they had a private network that also could be hacked, the hammer and the scorecard could go in there and flip votes in transit, not just when it was parked at the Secretary of State or in the actual voting machine. So there's multiple places where the votes were being flipped. But anyways, they were looking at the states that had the Dominion voting systems in place. And Pennsylvania, they had 220,883 votes switched from Biden to Trump, and they lost 941,248. So obviously this would change the outcome of the Pennsylvania election to Trump. You have New York that lost 623,000 votes. You have Minnesota, which switched 2,700 votes, but they lost 195,650 votes. You have Georgia, which switched 17,407 votes and lost 33,574 votes. Obviously, that would flip the state of Georgia. Virginia, maybe that would flip too. 12,163 switched with 789,023 votes lost. I mean, how many of these states would flip? There's obviously a lot more analysis to be done, but so much that has been verified already. And now you count in all the mail-in ballots and you count in everything else that's going on. This is just a crazy stolen election. I also got an article that was on the State of the Nation independent news site, and they're analyzing the fraud that occurred across the state, and that because they tried to steal the election, the Constitution and other court cases show that prohibits them from winning at all. If there is nationwide election fraud and there is a scheme that is showed, that prohibits them from winning the race at all. There's a case from the Supreme Court in 1878 that fraud vitiates everything, it says. By category asserting that fraud vitiates everything, the SCOTUS affirms that perpetrating fraud undermines the entire endeavor, the whole contract, the complete judgment, the final result, or the election outcome, etc. Once the fraud is proven, the enterprise in its entirety, such as a POTUS candidacy or campaign, has been irreparably tainted and any result is invalidated. In other words, if it was only the Michigan vote was stolen by Team Biden, their victory would still have to be nullified since fraud vitiates everything. Vitiates in this legal context means negates, quashes, annuls, invalidates, revokes, and abrogates. So therefore, once it's shown that there's massive widespread fraud or fraud in any state, then he loses because it invalidates his whole race. But obviously they're not going to do that. They're going to want to see massive fraud across the country. And I think, based on just what I'm showing here, that is the case. And this is a Supreme Court case, United States versus Throckmorton. So we do have precedents here. So I'm hoping you can share this video or look at my article and share that as well. These are very provable facts that fraud has been done. I know many people are focusing on the mail-in ballots, and there's a lot of fraud there. There's been hundreds of affidavits signed, but this is proof based on the computer, the data analysis coming from the software. So this is another angle that makes this whole thing invalid. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you so much for sticking with me through this hard time. I was deleted off YouTube, and I had over 125,000 followers. So all of you that have found me elsewhere, thank you so much for sticking with me, and we are all in this together. And thank you so much. I love all of you.